I know that a lot of people have mixed feelings about AI, but I've used a lot of different AI systems to help me study. So what I would do is, after I come back from university, I'd always put aside at least 1 or 2 hours for homework as well as studying. Probably 1 hour for homework, 1 hour for studying. That way you are able to make notes on the lectures that you had today, as well as put time aside to actually learn and understand the work. Really, if you start putting in the small work in the beginning, eventually it adds up, and by the time exams come, you aren't feeling this overwhelming stress like I've got to cram in a whole semester's worth of work into one night. One thing that I find is a huge struggle with pretty much every student is procrastination. So one thing that I find that I try to do as often as possible is to limit the amount of distractions that I have when I go into studying.
That's very difficult. Greetings everyone, welcome to Edu-Knowledge Exchange Podcast. This is your host Nadia and I'm here with Ethan Cameron. You're welcome, sir.
Hi Nadia, thank you so much for having me.
The pleasure is ours. So Ethan, can you please tell us a bit more about yourself, your role as a student, and what you're actually studying or studied?
Okay, so I started my tertiary studies in 2022. I started with a BSc in Sport Science and I'm still doing that today. I finished officially a couple weeks ago actually with my undergraduate degree.
Congratulations.
And thank you so much. I really appreciate it because it's been a long time coming, but it's the hard work has been worth it, to be honest.
Sir.
And I've gone through quite a bit of challenges over the time trying to balance work life as well as student life, but I've somehow managed to pull through.
Wow. So tell us, what the studies that you were pursuing, sure the audience knows nothing about it. So can you explain to them what it's all about?
Yeah, so I basically started in first year. I started working for my dad's company as an electrician. Okay. And I took quite a passion to that as well as sports science. So from that, I kind of just indulged myself in electrical engineering a lot of the time during my holidays. However, I wanted something that aligned more with my career path and what I'm currently studying. Okay. So I decided to pursue a career in sports science, specifically coaching. So I worked at a school that I was at when I was in high school. I started working there and I'm still working there now. And it has really helped me develop my knowledge and help apply my theory into practical aspects. More specifically, when it comes to applying for honors now, a lot of what the criteria they look for is about 75% of the work that they look for is theory-based. So how are your marks? What are your exams looking like? And then the other criteria is 25% is more practical work. Yeah. So they would look then of what outside experience do you have? Yeah. Do you have any experience in like coaching, for example? Have you ever umpired a game? Have you ever held a tournament before? And that really was where I could kind of progress my CV and my knowledge of sports science into a practical aspect. Yeah, of course. Wow. So that's really helped me a lot. And I think it's kind of steered me in the right direction for honors.
Especially considering the fact that it was a sacrifice, because I know that a lot of people struggle to balance work and study. So how did you manage to, balance everything out?
Yeah, it was difficult at first, I won't lie, because when you apply for a job, they kind of have requirements. They want you to be there certain days or certain times of the week, and that can conflict with your study schedule or even your lectures, which is quite problematic, especially when you come to exam time. When you actually have an exam on a certain day, you can't. You can't ask for like, oh, can I take a sick day or things like that, because you're part of a contract with a company. However, what I managed to do was look for companies that were very flexible. where
True.
they would allow you to come and go as you please, but still be able to fill criteria within the company. So, for example, I tell them my specific free days and the days that I'm available to work, and then they try and slot me in wherever
Within
they
those
can
days.
within those days,
Oh,
of course.
that's perfect. That's perfect.
Yeah, it's helped quite a lot actually. I still do it now where I actually keep like certain specific schedule of Mondays at like 1 o'clock till 2 o'clock. It's normally only like an hour or two a day, which is perfect because that allows me enough time to study when I need it.
That's true.
And yeah, that's kind of,
That's all that you need actually to be able to balance your studies,
Yes.
thrive in your studies, and also thrive at work.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not been easy. I've tried a couple companies working before. Some people have approached me and said, hey, would you like to work with us? I started working out with some public schools, and it was very interesting. The dynamic between working at a public school coaching versus private school coaching is very different.
Very different.
You
of course.
get completely different needs from the kids. You have different size of the kids. So you would be working with a larger group of kids in a public school setting, whereas private school, you're more aimed at a smaller group. And there that you can really kind of hone in your skills on a specific small group of people,
Yes.
especially as you go up in like coaching high school kids. You can really focus on the
on
individual.
the very important parts of their journeys also.
Yes,
And
100%.
also help them, to improve, because I know the ones that are in high school now, they take also their sports very seriously.
Yes, they do.
Yeah. So tell us, you just mentioned now that you want to pursue your honors degree, and so tell us what motivated you to go into this path.
Well, I really started looking around at people that had completed their sports science degrees in the past and what they are doing at the moment. So I did a lot of research, kind of went into the environment of the workplace and kind of was able to see, okay, I'm walking into a gym now, I can see there's an aspect of where there's a biokineticist, because that's ultimately what I would like to become one day, is a biokineticist. It's a form of sports science, right?
Okay.
However, it is more specialized and it requires a lot more understanding of anatomy and physiology to be able to apply rehab and strength and conditioning training to athletes.
So it's a specialism of sports science.
It is a specialism of sports science. You're
Okay,
100% correct. And so I looked in like different environments. So for example, gym settings, I was able to see, okay, there's this person is working as a biokineticist here. What requirements did they need, or what do they currently have? And a lot of the ones that I came to find were, majority of the people had at least an honors degree in sports science or biokinetics, because if you just do your undergraduate degree in sports science and you don't further your studies, you're very limited to the amount of careers options that you can actually pursue.
That's true.
Because you become underqualified for a biokineticist qualification, but yet you are almost, I wouldn't say there's an aspect of being too qualified, but for your skill set, I feel like you can be too qualified to be a personal trainer for what you're
Really?
actually worth.
Okay.
Because a lot of people that do personal training nowadays,
people who did just a small short training.
yeah, they didn't even necessarily do a sports science degree. Some of them only did a short course.
I think there's an 11 months training.
Yes,
or something like that.
which is like a quick 1 year thing, and then they're able to go into sports science. Whereas when I'm building up my skill set, I want to kind of aim higher,
That's
because obviously with the higher capabilities and skills that are required, obviously it's more specialized needs are required, and obviously at the end of the day you do get paid more for it, but more so what I like to do is to see growth in people individually, and the best results I can see that being is in biokinetics.
Okay. I hear you. Very complex what you just said now. But going back to what you said earlier on about working with high school and primary school learners, private schools and public schools.
Yes.
So which type of school was your favorite to work with?
I think at the moment it's probably private schools, just because it's easily manageable with the kids, especially when you're dealing with kind of kids in primary and developing stages. So for example, ones up until just before high school.
Okay.
They are the most influential, so they are able to conform to the instructions you give them, and they're able to take in a lot more. So they're able to absorb almost things like a sponge, because you'll tell them one thing, adjust one thing about what they're doing. If they're running incorrectly, maybe change that about them. And that you can see like a direct change in the way they perform, and how they also just their demeanor. You can see that they feel a lot more confident knowing that there's someone alongside them guiding them through this.
That's true, right?
Yeah.
That's very
and
true.
so for me personally, it's been the developing stage private school kids, but I do enjoy working with high school kids. However, there are a lot less. Sometimes in private schools, they find that they can rather just go to clubs rather. So instead of training at school for after school training or sports.
Focus on sports at schools and then go to a club. After.
Yes, of course. Yeah. So then that got me thinking, like, do I want to work in like a club setting? However, I'm not really sure of how that would work because they are less flexible. I noticed that when I've tried to ask, I think it was a few companies, they found that you have to be there at a specific time and for all the practices. Because they want one coach to develop with the students.
They grow.
Yes, of course. They don't want someone who's just going to come in and go and be like one person here's 1 week, then another person comes 1 week. Then it's not someone who's building foundational phase and developing them on a consistent basis.
I know those clubs focus on, growing with the learners or growing with the students.
Of course.
And just being part of their journey, basically.
Yes.
Yeah. So going back to high school and just seeing the person that you became, or like when you entered tertiary education, and did you ever think that high school really shaped you to be the person that you needed to be in university, or do you ever feel like you were lacking in a certain way?
I think it really helped morph what I wanted to become. I didn't know at first, like I'm pretty sure everyone at like high school stages doesn't know 100% this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. True. And so I had a really big passion for sport growing up. And I did well in science subjects like physics and biology. I enjoyed working with the human body, learning about it on every aspect. And so that kind of leaned my interest towards something to do with people. And so that gave me kind of a few options, working with like health practitioners or physios or chiropractors, kind of working with one-on-one individuals on a daily, regular basis, per se. And I found that sports science was something that really catered to my need for wanting to be involved in the sports setting, however, also being involved in the health and livelihood of the people, being able to see and progress develop them from a starting stage all the way to probably like end phases of their development.
Okay. Oh, wow. So you feel like university or UWC offers you the support that you need? Do you feel like it does?
Yeah, 100%. I find that for undergraduate, my undergraduate degree, that the facilities were provided in a manner that helped me thrive in that setting. Okay. And it really catered towards developing me into a biokineticist and not just a sports scientist. Whereas I know a lot of other universities, they might focus on like one sport or two sports per term, which is fine. It's just a different directional approach. I preferred the directional approach of being able to learn generally about anatomy and physiology, and then progressing my understanding and knowledge from there to be able to apply rather than to my knowledge to a few hand-picked specific sports, rather to generalized all sport, all rehab in that
yeah,
too.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
So you prefer having a broader aspect of, or
Yes, of course.
more choices.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, and knowing a bit about everything.
Yes, yeah.
That's true. And I think that is beneficial for everyone also, because that will allow you to really see what am I really interested in, what really catches my interest, and what really doesn't.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, because I know that you might be a sport, but I like sports, but I'm not going to sit and watch maybe cricket.
Yes, yeah, I completely agree.
But I'll
with
watch rugby, I'll watch soccer, I'll watch tennis, I'll watch anything else but cricket.
Yeah, and the universities might say you need to choose a specific sport and you have to study the sport for the term, which for people that do it, I'm sure they enjoy it and are able to, because there's also that physical aspect where they can actually get involved with the sport and play the sport.
Okay.
Whereas I've had enough experience with quite a variety of sports that I generally I don't feel like I need to further my knowledge of each individual sport. Rather, that's something I can take up in my own hobby and interest.
Should you want to?
Should I want to, yeah. And I kind of gain knowledge from my interests being watching sport as well. I kind of get to know how the rules of the sport work and obviously develop my knowledge of the sports as I'm going through them.
So I'm going back to you during university and you're throwing yourself there and there working. Tell us about the experience of working and the different kind of jobs that you took upon that obviously took your time, but you balanced it with studies. So tell us.
So I think one thing for me was starting with my first ever team sport was with, I think it was an under 9 age group with hockey. And it was very new to the school in an aspect of doing matches against people that wasn't. So the big issue was they didn't have an Astro at their school, and a lot of schools that they would compete against was on AstroTurf. So for them, it was developing ball skills in a way that they can adapt it to AstroTurf when they do play matches and not just playing on grass only in like practices and things like that. So that for me, that was like kind of a challenge, building a team from there and then still trying to change my mind and still feel like, okay, I've got to switch off my academic mode and switch on my coaching mode and be able to be like, okay, think logically, how would I be able to apply what I've learned into the setting of developing younger kids' skills so that they can thrive the best that they can.
Oh, sounds like a challenge.
It was actually a challenge at first. Some kids had different needs, and at that young age, some of them don't always respond completely to
what you teach them.
Yes, of course. Some of them just have different developmental challenges. Maybe some of them take longer to learn than others. And so I had to teach in a broader aspect of being able to say, okay, I'm going to develop a certain set of skills that all of them can develop by the end of the season, and that will be enough for me. If they can be able to do the X, Y, and Z by the end of the season, then I'll be happy. And that has been one of a challenge for me. However, it's worked out after a lot of persistent working hours with the kids. It's actually paid off.
That must be tough, eh?
Yeah.
And it's also quite pricey, so they can't make a field for themselves on their own ground.
Yes, of course.
So, oh my word, I'm just thinking about it. It's such a challenge. Yeah. And the fact that you help them through, so hopefully they're thriving now in their sports.
I would assume so, yeah. I'm obviously not with them at the moment, but because they obviously move up in the age groups, but I trust that the foundational skills that I helped build them at the time led them to build their interest and their passion for hockey.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. So tell us about, your study habits and how it played a role, obviously, in helping you to succeed in working and in balancing your studies also.
One thing that I find is a huge struggle with pretty much every student is procrastination. So one thing that I find that I try to do as often as possible is to limit the amount of distractions that I have when I go into studying.
That's very difficult.
And whether that be things that I've done is put my phone in another room and put it on charge, that has been one to keep me from looking at my phone constantly, checking messages. And then another thing has been to dedicate specific time for studying and allocate that time on a consistent basis so that you build a habit. When you do something often enough, you build a natural habit for something. So what I would do is, after I come back from university, I'd always put aside at least 1 or 2 hours for homework as well as studying. Probably 1 hour for homework, 1 hour for studying. That way, you are able to make notes on the lectures that you had today, as well as put time aside to actually learn and understand the work. It's really, if you start putting in the small work in the beginning,
eventually
it adds up. And by the time exams come, you aren't feeling this overwhelming stress, like I've got to cram in a whole semester's worth of work into one night. You are able to be more calm, and you are able to expand your knowledge in a broader sense. When you learnt about the general topic the first time around, this time you've made your notes, you've gone through it a few times, you know what the topic is about. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just sit and I'm going to read through my notes and be able to explain it to myself in a way that I would be answering a question that would be in an exam.
That's true. And also allowing yourself to practice different type of questioning
of course.
styles that obviously will help you in being able to conquer the question.
Yeah, of course. I know that a lot of people have mixed feelings about AI, but I've used a lot of different AI systems to help me study. There's been some where I would submit a document, for example, that has my study notes in it, and then I can ask the AI questions, and it can help me develop questions that, like, for example, I would say, can you develop some true and false questions based off of the anatomy of the spine? And it would come back to me and say, like, okay, there are 33 vertebrae in the body, can you name the different sections? And then I could answer it like that. And it helps me develop questions when I've already taken time to go through past papers, go through the notes, go through the past exams, and I need more resources. That is a beautiful place to find resources.
Obviously only happens if you have a lot of time.
100%. For me, it saved a lot of time. When I started off studying in the beginning of first year, I had to write these potential questions out myself. And it was taking so much time because I felt like I was wasting more time trying to write out what the question would potentially be, rather than actually just answering questions
and getting straight to the point.
Yes, of course. And another thing that I found helped is if you have a lecture that you've made notes on, or lecture that you've just got straight away, like just in its lecture slide format, and you're really struggling with the concept of a certain topic in that lecture, you can submit that document, and then you can ask them, can you explain this topic in a summarized version using easy examples and words? So then that way it helped me, because a lot of anatomy and physiology
words. You're really manipulating AI here.
Yes, of course, because a lot of the things that you read in the textbook, they use fancy words on purpose to make it sound super sophisticated, and then you're like, I don't really know what they actually telling. Yes, exactly, and that's where students can fall behind so much. So what I do is then I ask them to break it down into simple terms, and then I'm like, it's actually so much easier than I thought it was.
So simple.
Yes. And at the end of the day, the examiner will look at your work and will see, do you display an understanding of the work?
For the work, yes.
So if I'm not necessarily able to explain 100% word for word the correct terminology, although that is an important aspect, if I'm able to explain the core concept of what is being asked of me, I'm sure they can award marks for that. Yeah, you're already halfway there. Exactly. You've already made the majority of the effort. You just now need to fine tune your skill to be able to now match it to the terminology that you need to.
Yes. And I know that it's completely different in university and in high school.
100%.
In high school, you just need to learn the notes, summarize it, and keep it in your head, and then go and write an exam. In university, however, you need to have learned things. You learned it during lectures.
Yes, of
and
course.
You went and studied the work, but now it's a completely different world when we are writing the exam or the test.
Exactly.
And so we are asking you questions, and it's like these things are like new to you.
Yes,
and
of
you
course.
have to use the knowledge that you got to obviously find the way or solve these problems and these
100%.
issues.
Yeah.
So it's completely different.
Yeah, it is. You're right.
To a high school. So it's important that you know the work, understand it, and be able to a certain extent, also maybe teach it.
Yes,
that way you
yeah,
understand it better and better.
Yeah, one of the things I actually do as another like study technique is I can phone a friend either the night before or like a week before a test or exam, and I run through the notes with them. We go through and we say, okay, we need to know the topic of X, Y, and Z, the central nervous system, let's say, for example. Now, we ask each other, can we like not test each other, but we go through each part of the notes and we say, okay, this follows after this, and okay, this comes next. And then they'll be like, I didn't actually know, do you know this topic well? Because I'm unsure about it. I've tried learning it, but I'm not really sure how I can understand it. Then your friend can like explain it to you in a way that you maybe can understand it. In a way that is different from what like you've actually seen it before.
Yeah. And obviously it creates more understanding for you, because this is somebody who's your age. They're using words that are familiar to you. So I obviously works out in the end. Yeah, and we all do that here, because we need to help each other to study. Also, studying alone becomes boring at a certain extent.
It does. Oh my
when
word.
you're studying with somebody, they also encourage you. They teach you what you don't know. You teach them what they don't know, and it adds that small knowledge that obviously becomes important.
Two minds are always better than one. Hey, if you're studying by yourself, I find myself tend to want to procrastinate more, because it's very lonely when you're studying a long time and you can get very tired and fatigued quickly. Whereas if you're engaging the whole part of your mind with someone else, when you're actually teaching the topic, you open this different part of your mind that you wouldn't normally activate when you are just reading through the notes yourself.
Thinking.
Yeah, critical
especially
thinking.
If this person also challenges you, because I know that when I'm studying with my friends, they're not going to ask minor questions. They're going to try to challenge me, because they know that if I'm challenged, the answers that I give will help them also
100%,
when they are studying or when they are writing the exam, because they'll be remembering my voice, like she answered this and this and this. And I know that also whatever I ask them is beneficial to me. So if we put it in that way, then we know it's a win-win situation. And obviously we view it in the most positive way possible.
Yes, of course.
And of course, our viewers, stay tuned. Keep liking, commenting, and subscribing. If you feel like you also enjoy studying with a friend, then obviously tag the friend or even comment. Studying with a friend is the best thing. So stay tuned. Should you have any questions on sports science, leave them below. We'll make sure that Ethan gets to comment and answer your questions or your concerns. Stay tuned. So Mr. Cameron, please tell us about the time when you got the privilege of actually traveling while you were studying and while you were working. So,
wow, that was an amazing time. It started at the beginning of this year. It was around about June, July, and I'd saved up a lot of money from coaching. There was a point in 2023 at the end of the year where I was actually working 4 jobs at once. And it was really pressurizing, and it almost took a toll on my academics, but I made sure to maintain control over it and only allowed myself that one semester that I was going to push myself extensively so that I could reach my target amount that I wanted to apply for when I applied for visas and plane tickets, because there was a certain budget that I needed to have in time, and if I didn't have that, I knew that there was going to be issues towards the goal of me going overseas. So that was the real crunch time towards the end of the year 2, where I needed to really put my head down, work hard, and focus on my academics. However, I was able to save up enough money after the start of my studies up until June, July, and I was able to plan a trip to go overseas. And I ended up about the trip, really. I started off in the UK and went to see some family members, and then I went overseas to Scotland, and I went to go spend some time with my girlfriend and actually went to explore the outdoors of Scotland. It's honestly such a beautiful place.
I've heard.
If you ever go to Scotland, definitely the Highlands area is the most beautiful place. It's like Cape Town in different aspects, but it's so much more different in a different way. I know each place has their own unique things, but this place I can tell also has its own beautiful structures, beautiful mountain ranges. And
must be a peaceful place.
It is so peaceful. It is quiet. It is super tranquil, and I really enjoyed my time there. Another thing was after my trip to Scotland, I came back to the UK and I embarked on a Kontiki tour. Kontiki tour is basically like a tour around Europe. And it was originally, for a little bit of context, they explained that it was originally designed by an Australian person who wanted to allow Australians the ability to travel and explore Europe, because their continent is very out of the way from the rest of the world. So they wanted to allow Australian school-going students, once they finished their secondary studies to go into tertiary studies, they wanted them to provide this atmosphere where they can actually go and travel around Europe and see what the rest of the world is like. And now it's actually been widely open.
That people are very open to and
yes, of course. It's now become this huge international thing that is well known quite worldwide, actually. And I heard about it. I went on the trip, and of course, there was a lot of Australians on the trip with me. There was about 48 people in total on the trip. Yeah, and we started off in London Central Station, and we moved with a bus the entire time, a tour bus. Went to the coast of London, and we took a ferry across to France. Went to Germany, Switzerland, Austria. I think we finished off in France, Paris it was around about the time of the Olympic Games, which was amazing. Such an amazing experience. I got to see the handing over of the torch at the time, and the fireworks of Bastille Day, which is like a very heritage day accustomed for French. It was to do with the French Revolution at the time. And it's like a remembrance of that day. So it was very, very culturally rich that day. You could see that there was an awesome vibe that was going around.
Memorable.
It was so memorable. I think it's something that is definitely a once-in-a-lifetime experience. And it's really taught me so much about different countries, more so about the people and the way that their cultures are different from one another. Although these countries are so close to each other, Germany is close to Austria, close to the other countries, Switzerland and Italy and France, they're all like within like a bus drive distance away from each other. And we were able to cover that in 7 days. So I find that despite them being so close to each other, they're so different from each other. Their cultures, the way the people work and operate, the way they communicate with people is so different. And I really enjoyed seeing that difference and appreciating the diversity that exists between different countries in Europe.
Wow. Seems like such a privilege.
Yes,
but
it was.
This is a privilege that many people I don't think have in South Africa. So how would you advise the audience, to be able to appreciate what they have and
of course,
not envy you?
Yes, of course, yeah. I'm not saying these things as a form to make people envy or jealous of that, but rather to promote this excitement and inspiration into wanting to go out into the world and not just be able to settle where you are. Don't limit yourself to where you live only. Try and travel around, see what the rest of the world is like. If you go to places like Nigeria and Lagos, you want to find a place that you can see a difference in the culture. You want to find a place that is different from your own. I know in my matric year, I went to Mozambique because my family lives in Durban as well. And it was such a different experience. I enjoyed it so much. It wasn't like this amazing overseas plane ride away. And I enjoyed it almost just as much, even more, knowing that this place is in Africa and it's somewhere that feels like home, but it's separate. Exactly. It's a completely different environment, yet I can enjoy it just as much.
Wow. So please advise our audience on working hard, because I know everything that you've achieved. Even though people are going to be like, wow, we're so privileged. It also came about From hard work.
Hard work, yeah. I will say that none of the money that I accumulated now wasn't from hard work. I know I had to put in long hours and
Many
hard
sacrifices.
work. Yes, many sacrifices. There were so many times I can remember now where friends had asked me if I wanted to go out and party or if I wanted to go spend time with them. Not saying that you must give that up, but know when to allocate time for studies and for your social life. Because if you don't plan for success, you ultimately are going to fail.
That's true.
And if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. That's like a thing I've heard from like when I was growing up. It's just one of those things. Even if it's socializing with friends, you plan it, you put it into your schedule, diarize it. If you've got an hour of study, plan that in your in your calendar. You're definitely gonna use it because you know that you are occupying that time for a specific thing. If you don't, you are opening yourself up for what else can I do during that time? Oh, there's a sports match going on at the moment. Let me just like watch that and then get back to study. If you start doing that, by the time
you're done watching the match, you're already tired.
You would be tired. You want to go to sleep, and it snowballs. So plan yourself in accordance with what you want to achieve. If I knew from the moment I finished high school, I was saying to myself, I want to go overseas. I want to see what Europe is like. And from there, I actually created this vision board in front of my study desk, and it was of the different countries. It was different photos I found off of Pinterest and off of Instagram that really was it was inspiring me to pursue this. And whenever I would feel down and lacking motivation, wanting to procrastinate, I look at that board and think,
guy, you need to go to Europe.
This is what I'm planning towards. I know
I can't give up now.
Exactly, I can't give up now. If I write a sup now, I won't make it in time for my trip overseas.
Absolutely.
And so you've got to just be able to see the vision in your mind, imagine you achieving that vision, and then go for it. That's the one thing that I learned over this time. When I was overseas, I didn't once think about the times that I canceled my plans with someone or
because you're already in the moment, you're just enjoying yourself. You're just
enjoying yourself, and you knew that all those sacrifices come to this. And it makes it so much worth it.
Yay.
You enjoy something so much more when it's not handed to you, when it's actually worked for.
When you worked hard for it, obviously you will cherish, because you know that my blood, my sweat, my everything came into me getting this thing. So obviously I'm going to enjoy it. And I know that in our society, I'm not going to talk about the Gen Zs, but I'm going to talk about other generations that have gotten used to being handed things, being handed over things, or being given this, being given this. And as the up and coming generation, guys, we are encouraging people to be hardworking. And to also have visions and missions about your life, so that everything that you've achieved only came about from your hard work. Nobody can tell you that you are too privileged, you are too proud, you are this.
You're lucky.
Nobody can. You are lucky. You can't tell me I'm lucky. You can't tell Ethan is lucky because he worked hard for everything that he did, and you're able and capable of doing exactly that. So obviously, guys, be encouraged. Be encouraged to work hard. Be encouraged to want to pursue your dreams and to be your best self. That's what I always encourage people.
That is
I encourage people to thrive. I encourage you guys to obviously be your best self, and I commemorate you for that, because
thank you so much, Nadia.
It's not easy. It's not easy to work hard, to have to save up, to do all of these things, and somehow in some way things will stand in your way. Obviously. 100%. I know you had challenges. You wanted to achieve. You probably wanted to go out maybe in January or some other time, you know. But then you didn't get that opportunity, and you only went out in June, and it was all through hard work and persistence, because you didn't give up.
I sacrificed those holidays for a main goal that I had in mind. I knew that although that the June holiday is the perfect time to relax and things, I can still relax. You can still, after working a day's worth of work, you can still come home and relax and enjoy your time.
Yes, and I always say that to young people, that while you're still young, your blood is still flowing.
Yes,
you can do so many things. Don't limit yourself to being like, no, I need 8 hours of sleep.
Yeah. Be real with yourself. Be real with yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
If a hardworking person does not wake up at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, they wake up at 5 or 6 and actually start the day earlier than others, because time is money.
Yeah, man.
At the end of the day.
Of course. I 100% agree with you.
Yeah, so Mr. Cameron, let's go back to when you are just starting university. This is 2022, and you know, you are obviously coming into WC and you're like, hey, I don't know anything, I don't know this campus, everything was new to you.
Yes.
But what is that piece of advice that you wish you had when you were starting at UWC, that you didn't have, that you would love to share with the audience now?
Yeah, I think one of the things would be to really embrace the culture of your university and get involved, because so many times when I saw things coming up as like adverts in the university newspaper or the university like flyers, I overlooked it and I was like, there's an event happening, let me just rather stay at home. If it's something that's going to bring you closer to a friend, a potential friend or a group of friends, make that move, make that step out and actually just go to it. I know it's going to be uncomfortable, but nothing ever is worth it if it's comfortable. You know, you reach out because it's uncomfortable, because that's something actually worth reaching out for. And so it was very awkward in the beginning, being around new groups of people all the time, new groups of students that I'm studying with, maybe only for 1 year, and then they change courses. I build those friendships that last longer than that.
Yes.
And so one thing of advice would be to reach out even when it's uncomfortable.
That's true. And that's very important, because when you're going to a new environment, obviously everybody feels awkward around each other, and like you're like, why must I put in the effort? But obviously if you feel like this person is gonna help me, or we can help each other in our journey, then somebody has to make the sacrifice. You might as well be that person.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So what is that your study, what can I say, the habits that you've obtained throughout your studies that were so beneficial to you, that you feel like will also be beneficial to other students who are yet to begin or who are already studying?
I think a habit that I would suggest would be, when you are in class, make that time for class work and understanding. Don't try and sit back and talk to your friend in the back of the lecture, because so many people I've come, they treat that as like, do I have to be here? Are lectures, they're not compulsory, should I actually go to them? Treat it as like it was high school, where you had to be there from like 8 a.m. till 3 in the afternoon. Treat it like that. You make it like you only, the effort that you get out is only the amount that you put in.
That's true.
If you want to see a reward, you have to put in the same amount of effort. It doesn't just come to you. So I would say treat, not just when being on campus is so fun. You can be around friends and things like that. But one thing I would say, when you're in a tutorial, when you're in a lecture, really just spend that time learning. Focused on your stuff. You're going to save yourself so much time.
More especially when you're studying, because you will need to remember. When you see the topic coming up, you need to remember what the lecturer said.
Exactly. And if you're not at that lecture, you're only relying on yourself to know what you studied the night or the week before, and the notes you made when you were at home. Whereas if you've heard tips and things from the lecturer, that is something they can actually really, because they want you to pass. They don't want you to be there constantly year after year. So they're going to give you tips, and they're going to give you advice that is going to help you. They're going to tell you, this is important, don't study this, study this, because that's what's ultimately is going to allow you to pass. So being in the lectures, being present in the lectures, make the notes in the lectures, because when I go home and I haven't made a note during the lecture, I'm like scratching my head trying to re-understand this work that I learned today. It wastes my time, and it takes so much of my own personal time out. Also, I could be spending time. Energy.
Eventually it makes you feel so frustrated if it's not coming in.
It does. It's 100% something that I learned after first year and second year. I was like, I need to stop this now. Otherwise, I'm setting myself up for failure. And that's what I did. And it helped me in the long run, actually.
That's true. Because I know that sitting in lectures can be so... Sometimes you feel like it's time consuming.
Yeah, it is.
You feel like it's boring. You feel like, especially if the lecturer has a voice, you know, those voices.
The monotone voice that speaks on and on and almost reads the lecture slides.
And you're I can read for myself.
I can read for myself at home.
But either way, there's a reason why this lecturer is a professional and not you.
And because if you've made yourself that habit, there will be some lecturers that will read the lecture slides and things like that. But you are going for the lectures that are giving you that insight, especially before the exams. Those little nuggets of wisdom that you're going to use when you are writing that paper. I can't tell you how many times that has come in clutch for me when I'm writing that paper, and I'll remember that last lecture that he mentioned.
He said this and that.
He said this and that, or she said, don't study this, study this. This is important. I studied that. And what? It comes in the paper, word for word. It's the exact same thing. And that for me is just a sigh of relief.
And that obviously that's the benefit of attending lectures, because those who didn't attend didn't get that tip. So sorry.
And after the exam, they come to me and they said, what was that question? I didn't know that question. I'm just thinking in my head.
Had you attended?
If you had attended, you would have known in that last lecture or that second last lecture, they told you that this was going to be in it.
Yeah, that's that's very, very big. Give us some last advice or last minute tip that you feel like will benefit the viewers, you feel like will benefit me, will benefit anybody who's, a student or who's a graduate who needs motivation. Because I feel like you are literally that, image of motivation, persistence, and hard work that we need to have. And it's also a dip of, what can I say, hard work and consistency.
Yes.
Yeah, because I know consistency is key, and not all of us are consistent in what we do. So, give us that advice that's going to always be like at the back of our mind and be like, Ethan said this, keep on going, Nadia.
I kind of treat my life as like a scale that wants balance all the time. So what I advise is make time for relaxing, make time for studying, and make time for sleeping. So you allocate those times so that way when I'm feeling clouded with so much information, I've been studying 3-4 hours today, I need an outlet. So make yourself an outlet that you can look at, whether it's going for a walk outside that you really enjoy, or going to the gym, or if it's not something necessarily active, maybe it's something like just relaxing and listening to music. That is something that is stimulating for your mind, but not causing you to fall into procrastination. It's keeping your mind active, but allowing you to rest at the same time. So it's important that you put in rest. I'm not saying that you have to work yourself to the bone day after day. You must give yourself rest, because that's the only thing that's really going to give you that endurance to get through from beginning to end.
That's true. Yeah. Because I feel like some of us overlook rest so much. Like rest is very important. Yeah. Especially if you're really spending the time on social media.
I would consider that not really active rest, to be honest. I feel like it's so mind-numbing.
Instead of wasting time on social media, rather rest. And then obviously you get that energy, you get energized.
Even though it might not seem fun at first, it'll be, trust me, it will be fun in the long run when you're not writing an extra exam because you were on the Instagram the night before. That's
so true.
Yeah.
So can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah, of
course. Do you guys do consumer studies in your
I know a lot of the BA students, BA Sport Science students do it. They do consumers and then they do business studies. However, with BSc Sport Science, we don't actually do that because we are less focused on business management in sport and rather focused on clinical practitioning work in sport.
Oh, okay. So you guys don't do anything that has to do with nutrition?
So nutrition-wise, we actually do we started learning towards the very end of this year, actually. It was kind of frustrating because I was finding that I'm using all the sport knowledge, but I don't have any nutritional knowledge. But yet in the last bit of the semester, we actually learned quite a lot about nutrition. What things are good for you, what things are not good for you. And if I have any tips about that, if you're wondering, I would say a balanced diet, more so in adding less like meat and things like that. That would be like carbs. Carbs are things that build calories and ultimately make you gain weight. If you're finding that you're suffering from things that make you put on weight, makes you sluggish, makes you tired easily, 80% of your health comes from your diet. 20% comes from exercise. So if you are eating right, you're already 80% of the way there. So what I would suggest, make yourself a correct meal plan that or ask someone. There's so many, if you're at university, ask a dietitian. They know nutrition back to front. They can tell you, hey, I'm going to give you an eating plan. This is what you should follow. And that will help you, give you so much more energy. I did it in first year. I was like feeling tired. Every day I come home and I'm sleeping. Every day I'm waking up and I'm tired. And what I did was I adjusted my diet and I felt so much more energized. Give yourself those vitamins that you need.
So as a last minute tip for those who watch till the end, can you give us, a quick diet tip for the summer that,
Okay, so I would say for a lot of people that want to lose weight quickly, you would give yourself a calorie deficit. So calorie deficit is things, if you look on the side of your food brands and things like that, they have nutritional information. Look at the amount of calories that you are consuming in each food. Typically for men, it should be around, I'm not going to give specific amounts just so that, because I can't quite remember.
Hold you accountable.
Yeah, of course. And it's also different between age and gender. And so I just want to say that look at how much calories you work throughout the day. And you can ask someone about that that's more knowledgeable about it. But give yourself a little bit of a calorie deficit in order to lose weight quickly and accompany that with exercise. That will help you lose weight as well as maintaining health at the same time.
Okay. And something for dehydration or something?
So like rehydration, I would say, if you're doing a lot of exercise, I would say things like electrolytes are so good for you. Even when you're not exercising, it helps give you the energy and vitamins that you need for energy. And a lot of things that slow mag is something that I've used a lot that helps you. Yeah, it gives you energy in the morning. I usually give myself a glass of water and a tablet of slow mag. It's an effervescent that is like a magnesium supplement, and that's already a vitamin that you need for energy and helps you feel refreshed in the morning. Helped me when I was during exams. You just have one every day, feel completely fine.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Mr. Cameron.
Thank you so much,
It's been a
Nadia.
pleasure to host you.
Thank you.
And I'm sure the audience are very happy to have learned the tips that you shared. Of course, guys, stay tuned. Keep liking, commenting, and subscribing. Should you feel like this knowledge that is being shared on the podcast is important, share the podcast to somebody who you feel like is going to benefit them, and look forward to next week. We're going to be posting more, and obviously I feel like it's going to benefit you and I and society, so stay tuned. Bye.